Money is the single most misunderstood force in modern life. Most people see it as a simple scorecard, a number that rises when they work hard and falls when they spend. They chase a higher salary, save what they can, and hope that one day the arithmetic of their lives will tilt in their favor. But this is not how money works in the real world. It is not a scorecard, it is a current. It flows through the global economy according to a set of rules that are rarely taught in schools, never discussed at dinner tables, and deliberately obscured by the very people who benefit most from the system. To understand money is to understand that it is not primarily about earning, it is about structuring. The wealthy, the powerful institutions, the family offices, and the sovereign funds do not view money as income. They view it as architecture. And until you begin to see the architecture, you will always be a tourist in the economy, a visitor to a system you will never control. Consider the average working professional. They exchange their time for a wage, let us say $100,000 a year. After taxes, they keep roughly $70,000. From that, they pay for housing, food, transportation, insurance, and the quiet drip of consumption that defines modern life. At the end of the year, if they are disciplined, they might have saved $10,000. This is the cycle of labor. They are selling the only thing they truly own, which is their hours. They are liquidating their life in units of 60 minutes, and at the end of the process, they are left with a small pile of cash. Now consider a business owner who generates the same $100,000 in profit. That profit sits inside a corporate entity, a legal structure that exists only on paper, but is recognized by the state as a separate person for tax purposes. Before the owner takes a single dollar for personal use, they use that corporate profit to buy a delivery van, deducting the full cost against their revenue. They pay a consultant, deducting that expense as well. They reinvest in equipment, and that reinvestment is not taxed as income, it is taxed as capital expenditure. The owner does not pay tax on revenue. They pay tax on the tiny remainder left after they have used the system to expand their control over assets. This is the first great divide. The employee is taxed on the total amount they bring in. The owner is taxed only on what is left after they have decided how to spend their money to make more money. This distinction between labor and structure is the foundation of everything that follows. The employee sees taxes as a punishment. The wealthy see taxes as a cost of doing business, and like any cost, it is something to be managed, minimized, and legally deferred. The rich do not evade taxes. They simply abide by a different set of rules, rules that are written for them by the very nature of the system. When a salaried worker earns $100, they pay income tax, payroll tax, and sales tax when they spend the remainder. The total tax burden can approach 50%. When a wealthy investor earns $100 through capital gains on an asset they held for more than a year, they pay roughly 23% in federal taxes, and often nothing in payroll taxes because their income is not classified as wages. This is not a loophole, it is a design feature. The system encourages capital formation, it punishes labor. The person who works for a living is taxed at the highest rate. The person whose money works for them is taxed at the lowest. This is the first lesson in how money actually functions. It flows toward the structures that are most tax efficient, and it does not care about your hard work or your moral worth. Now shift your focus to debt, which is perhaps the most weaponized tool in the financial arsenal. The average consumer sees debt as a burden, a monthly payment that eats into their paycheck, a mortgage, a car loan, a credit card balance that accrues interest at punitive rates. They are told to pay it down as quickly as possible, but the wealthy do not see debt this way. To a billionaire, debt is not a liability, it is a source of leverage. If a property investor buys a building for $10 million, they might put down $2 million and borrow $8 million. The building produces rental income of $500,000 a year, and the interest on the loan is $300,000. The net profit is $200,000, a 10% return on their $2 million equity. But the true magic is that the property appreciates by 4% per year, adding another $400,000 in unrealized wealth. The investor has turned a $2 million cash outlay into a $600,000 annual gain, a 30% return on equity. The debt did not destroy their wealth, it amplified it. The interest payments are also tax-deductible, further reducing their tax bill. This is the inner logic of productive leverage. Consumer debt buys things that depreciate, like cars and televisions, and it is taxed at high rates because it is paid with after-tax dollars. Productive debt buys things that generate cash flow, and the interest is often subsidized by the tax code. The ordinary person pays their mortgage with their salary. The wealthy person pays their mortgage with the income generated by the asset itself. This is a fundamental inversion of how most people understand finance. The next layer of this architecture is the role of banking and the creation of money itself. Most people believe that money is a finite resource, like gold in a vault, and that banks simply lend out the deposits that savers have entrusted to them. This is false. In the modern financial system, banks create money when they make loans. When a bank issues a mortgage, it does not move existing currency from one account to another. It simply credits the borrower's account with a new deposit, creating new purchasing power out of thin air. This power is the engine of inflation, and it is controlled by a central bank that operates almost entirely outside the democratic process. When the central bank lowers interest rates, it makes borrowing cheaper for banks, which in turn lend more, creating more money in the economy, driving up asset prices, and inflating the value of stocks, real estate, and bonds. The wealthy own these assets, so inflation is a gift to them. The ordinary worker owns a savings account yielding almost nothing, and perhaps a home they are still paying off. When inflation rises, their dollars lose purchasing power, their wages lag, and their savings erode. They are the last to benefit from the creation of money, and the first to feel the pinch when its value declines. The wealthy, on the other hand, have access to cheap debt, which they use to buy assets before the inflation arrives. By the time the price increases affect the consumer's grocery bill, the investor has already sold the asset at a higher price to the very people who are now struggling to afford it. This is not a conspiracy. It is the mechanical function of the market. To truly understand money, one must also understand the difference between ownership and income. A surgeon earning $1 million a year is considered wealthy by societal standards, but that surgeon is an employee, albeit a highly paid one. Their income stops the moment they stop operating. Their wealth is entirely dependent on their active participation in the economy. Now consider the owner of a portfolio of apartment buildings, generating $200,000 a year in rental income. That owner has no boss, no commute, and no schedule. The assets work independently. The owner can borrow against the equity in those buildings to buy more, creating a compounding effect that snowballs over decades. The surgeon pays the highest marginal tax rate on their $1 million income. The apartment owner pays capital gains rates on the appreciation and can use depreciation to reduce their tax liability on the rental income. The surgeon cannot pass their surgical skills to their children, but the apartment owner can pass the buildings, structured through a trust or a family-limited partnership, to their heirs with an almost complete step-up in tax basis, eliminating decades of capital gains tax on the appreciation. This is how dynasties are built, not through earning more, but through owning more and understanding how to pass that ownership across generations without the state confiscating the gains. This brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, which is the institutional mentality. A successful entrepreneur or hedge fund manager does not think in terms of a budget. They think in terms of balance sheets. They see the world as a series of transactions that either improve their net worth or degrade it. They do not ask how much something costs. They ask how it affects their cash flow, their leverage, their tax position, and their strategic control. They understand that money is not a noun, it is a verb. It is something that must move, be deployed, and earn a return that exceeds the rate of inflation and the cost of capital. If you hold cash, you are losing money. If you hold bonds, you are barely treading water. If you hold a well-structured portfolio of cash-flowing assets, you are swimming with the current. The ordinary person saves money to protect themselves from the future. The wealthy person deploys money to shape the future. They are not afraid of risk. They calculate it, price it, and often take the other side of the ordinary person's fear. When the market crashes, the retail investor sells in panic, locking in losses. The institutional investor, flush with cash and dry powder, buys the assets at a discount, knowing that the long-term trajectory of capital is always upward, driven by innovation, population growth, and the relentless expansion of credit. This is the reality of the financial system. It is not fair, but it is not arbitrary. It is a set of rules that have been constructed over centuries, and those who understand the rules play a different game. They do not work harder than the average person, they often work less. They do not take more physical risk, they take calculated financial risk. They do not consume their wealth, they collateralize it. The average person lives inside the economy. The wealthy person lives outside it, looking down at the flow of money like a grand chessboard, moving pieces according to laws that were written for them. This is the central truth that the personal finance industry will never tell you, because the industry depends on you believing that a budget and a side hustle are the keys to freedom. They are not. The key to freedom is structure. It is ownership. It is debt used as a weapon. It is tax efficiency. It is understanding that money is not what you earn. It is what you keep. It is what you control. And most of all, it is what earns more money while you sleep, while you travel, while you raise your children, and while you one day pass it on to the next generation. Until you see the system for what it is, you will remain inside it. But once you see it, you can begin the slow, deliberate work of building your own architecture. That is the moment you stop being a participant and start becoming a player.